assessment on each one of these items down listed here?
Yes.
Okay. And so overall average, and you're saying it's 94% for
Right.
all of those?
Right. Or 94% of our systems have a level of 1 or 2.
And
Right.
other low
Low risk.
Low
Yeah, no, I
risk.
got that, yeah.
Each individual, you will see them by division from the, starting on page 10. And there are the 9 factors by division, by the different type of categories, the different divisions, and how they were ranked in the mid-year and also at the end of the year. So we not just look at it once, we look at it also at the end of the year, because things may have changed, and see if there are some added training or development that we need to do for our division. We conduct, and this is an integral part of our budgeting process, and it is part of our systems to make sure that we have systems in place so that we can be ready, because almost throughout the whole year, we are under audit at some point in time, either the external auditors, or a federal audit, or a state audit, or a endowment, or somebody that, decides to submit a desk audit of our different programs. So we conduct that, and this is something that we provide to our external auditors and also our agencies that come in to do the review. They ask, that's one of the checklists, and ask questions for our auditors that come in, and do you have a risk assessment process and in place? So we provide that to them. So this is not an action, it's just basically information to the board of our process of what we have. If you have any questions, you can pay them now. If not, we can go to the next step, because I don't have much more to presentation.
You said there were 9 categories?
8.
8, okay.
8.
That's, all right.
Yes.
I'm good, because
Yes.
I kept seeing 8 now.
Yes, 8. I think that when I was talking, it was on page 9. Yeah, on page 9 it was a summary, but there are 8 elements.
Yeah.
And let me go through this real quick. The first one is quality of internal controls. Number 2 is change in management and key personnel, and that's started on page 5. Number 3, the nature of the transaction, if we have cash. Number 4 is the complexity of the operations in technology. Number 5 is competence of management. Number 6, change in computer systems. Number 7 is regulatory requirements. And number 6, when was the last time this was reviewed, audited, and checked from an external perspective? So those are the different factors.
So just so I can understand and
Sure.
read this and know it in the future.
Sure.
So if I look at audit of the quality of internal controls,
Mhm.
and so these are the various
Right.
divisions or things you looked at across the horizontal, across the top. And so they're ranking. Now, what does a 1 mean?
Okay, the 1 is a low risk.
It's right, it's right,
Where?
right
Okay.
here.
At the bottom.
Oh, at the bottom, okay. So 1 to 5, okay.
Right. High means high risk.
Yeah, and so the division versus the end of the year, right?
Mhm.
So what does DIV stand for?
Division.
Division, okay,
And then the end of the year.
okay,
We also not just let
okay.
the divisions do that on their own. The business office also reviews their rankings to make sure that we're in agreement, because, you have to have somebody else review the ranking, because you can't tell you, I'm
Yeah, that's
always
what
low.
that was my next
So
question.
that's part of my function
Okay.
to do that.
Well,
to make sure that
some of the
they're-
risks are high just by the nature
By the
of
nature of the
department.
sport.
Yeah,
so to speak.
technology has got always evolving,
Yeah.
so it's gonna have higher risk.
And there are some programs that, because of the nature of where if you do something wrong in terms of special ed, like therapy, then you could create have some situations with lawsuits and what have you, so that's a higher risk, because you're touching children that could have.
Head Start is a better example
Head
of that,
Start.
with the federal regulations.
So it just depends on the nature of the division. And of course, some of them are more support divisions, so that those are much, they don't have an external, have lower ranking.
I got it.
So the risk assessment doesn't always reflect on the people or the division itself,
It's a
but it could
function.
be the things that impact the division from the outside, like regulatory, federal
Those
regulation.
environmental factors.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay.
This ignores immunity, right?
Yes. don't take the immunity considerations into account
Mhm.
because this is just purely a risk assessment without looking at immunity.
Right.
Thank you.
The next item, Selena Miller, and, turn it over to her, and, the results of the 2016 audit and the presentation. You should have 3 documents: the comprehensive annual report, the report of single audit report, which is our federal grants, and then third, a presentation that Mr. Miller's gonna.
Do you have an extra
review.
one of those presentations?
Good morning, thank you for meeting with us here this morning. I have Laura Lynch, who is the manager on the engagement, so she handled the field work with our seniors and staff. What I'd like to do is go over just some required communications, just items that I have to communicate to you and get that out of the way, and then we'll dive into financial highlights and into your general revenue financial statement. So on slide 2, this talks about when we were first engaged by HCDE, and it all started with our engagement letter, which was dated May 3rd, 2016. Because you do receive more than $750,000 in federal grants, we're required to perform our audit in accordance with the Yellow Book or government auditing standards. In order to be external auditors, we have to be independent of HCDE, and we assert to you that we are and have been. There are figures presented in the comprehensive annual financial report that we obviously audit, and throughout the process, we're looking for supporting documentation from external parties or source documentation within HCDE. However, there are estimates included in the numbers. For example, your capital assets are depreciated on an annual basis based on their useful life. So that's an estimate based on industry standards. So that accumulated depreciation is a function of the annual depreciation expense. Pension-related items, we visited this for the first time last year, and that has to do with the department's participation in the teacher retirement system of Texas. And last year was the first year that it made the GASB number 68, which is a nationwide standard that required all governmental entities to report its proportionate share if you participate in a cost-sharing plan like TRS, to report that pension item liability on the face of the financial statements. It still only impacts the government-wide financial statements and full accrual statements, and we'll get into that a little bit more. This year it was $8.2 million. Again, it's important for you all to realize that that doesn't represent a cash flow item for the future. You'll continue to fund all of your employees like you have in the past based on statutorily determined rates, okay? The last estimate is the allowance for uncollected property taxes. Again, that's based on historical collection rates, but your collection rate is pretty high, greater than 98%. If management had consulted with other auditors about our opinion or the application of accounting standards or principles, we'd be required to report that to you here today, and as far as we're aware, that has not occurred. We didn't have any disagreements with management or difficulties with management throughout the process. In addition to the basic financial statements, we also have required supplementary information such as the management discussion and analysis, or the MD&A, the budget to actual schedule for the general fund, and then of course the pension information, which is the second year that this has appeared. The supplementary information gives you the detail of all your special revenue funds and any other funds that are not considered major in accordance with our governmental accounting standards that we operate under. And again, we also provide an in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is in that smaller packet that Ms. Torres passed out for you today. The final piece of evidence that we obtained from the department is the management representation letter, and that was dated January 17th, 2017. That's indicating that management has told us about all matters affecting the financial statements, any contingencies, anything having to affect the federal grants, and any other matters that would be material to the financial statements. The other category, before we get into the general item, there is a note disclosure in the financial statements related, and it's very general, and there's a reason for that. Probably in the middle of November, Dr. Amezcua and Ms. Torres pulled me in and said they had received notification from Texas ESN that they were asserting that they were disallowing some claims related to technology. And so, from an accounting standpoint, we ran through the requirements of GASB number 62 on do we disclose, do we have enough information to disclose an amount based on what Dr. Amezcua had discussed with your in-house counsel as well, with Sarah. I can't, is it
It's
Langlois?
hard, it's Langlois.
Langlois, okay. I haven't made up my own pronunciation all these years, you know. I've always been saying Langlois, but okay, Langlois, okay.
It was better before I got married, which was much more phonetic.
Langlois, okay. So with this situation, and I'll let management chime in on that, but just from our audit perspective, why we didn't record an accrual was one, because the figures presented to HCDE, and I've shared this with you, Mr. Sumners, as well, is that the amount provided of quote-unquote disallowed claims has been changing, and it has been dwindling downward. And also based on the legal advice, they believe that they can refute much of the amounts that have been included in the letters from.
And that's still an
Right.
ongoing process
Correct.
as we speak. I met
Correct.
with their executive director probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we're still trying to solidify exactly what that looks like. So
Right.
we're in the process of waiting, and we'll certainly update the board as soon as we know some solid information with that.
Right, and so on the conservative side, what Dr. Amezcua did do is, you'll see in the general fund, there's an assigned fund balance. He set aside money for the highest amount possible, but again, that amount has been dwindling downward. And what we've seen in the past, we've been in this situation before with other matters too, where management does not wanna put anything in writing because that's an admission that they've done something incorrect. And you all are taking the position that the amounts provided in there are not owed in the quantity included there. So you all have, yes, go ahead.
So is or is not a disclosure in your,
There is, and it's very general that from time to time, grantors will come forward and say that there's disallowed claims. However, in the estimate of management, it will not materially impact the financial statements. That's what the disclosure says.
Okay. So, how much have you set aside?
We set aside, as part of our assigned fund balance, and it's also with other programs, about 900,000, 950,000.
We're far from that number.
Yeah, and so we have, set aside under the assignment, and we can go over, when we look at the fund
Well,
balance.
just this claim, how much did you set aside?
Oh.
150?
950.
950, that was the starting point.
Right.
And yeah,
Okay.
we've had several estimates going downward, so.
Let me ask you a question, is this the program that's done through Region 10?
Mhm.
Okay, is the claim originally to Region 10 and then moved on to us?
It's passed through, Region 10 is the pass-through entity, so they have the state asking them to support that claim, and then you all are their subrecipient.
So actually, the state initially is wanting the money back from Region 10,
So is this about the virtual school network?
Yes.
Okay.
right?
It goes from.
Because 10 is the one that,
Right, he
didn't
would be the
get charged
state
them
to
too much.
Region 10, and then to us.
yeah, and then it's, so we're like.
It's like a relay.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So are you negotiating directly with the state?
Yeah, well, not the state directly with Region 10, because the state has not communicated with us.
Okay.
And so, both their executive director, which is like their superintendent, he and I had lunch a couple
And,
weeks ago.
and as a matter of.
We haven't heard back from him.
Being conservative and trying to, reserve and just for the likelihood in case, something